Stop right there. Yeah, you. If you like all things entertainment, current events, or Hollywood, then look no further. Creator to Creators, hosted by director Meosha Bean of Horror Noir, interviews filmmakers and creatives from around the world. Join in on the fun, guest celebrities, and informative information to have as a creator. Hit subscribe and stay connected to Creator to Creators.
Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Creators to Creators today. Today, we have a special guest.
Jaxson McLennan.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm really super excited to chat with you. I read your bio and you're just super talented. And I just love talking to guests and just hearing people's stories. And I love going back to the beginning. So talk to me a little bit about your childhood and where'd you grow up and how did you kind of find your way into this entertainment business?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Melbourne, Australia. Pretty, I don't know, fairly standard, I think, Australian childhood. My dad was or still works in radio. My uncle worked in TV, still does work in TV.
Nice.
And there's pictures of me as like a 3-year-old with a giant camera on my shoulder and things like that. So I think probably there was some kind of love for the entertainment industry from a young age. My brother was into music; he was in a band, and so I was into music. I think it's just a family of creativeness. And yeah, so then I was, for a while I was really into music, and then I joined a little boy band.
I love it. Were you the lead?
I mean, there was 3 of us, and we were sort of equal leads, I guess. And so I was in. I mean, I started. That was when I was 8 years old, and I was in that for like 10 years, I think.
Wow.
Until I graduated high school, and then I think we all sort of went our separate ways and went, oh, hang on, we have a life to live to begin, So then I went to film school and studied at film school, and then I also was, while I was at film school, I was freelancing in radio to kind of make some money. And yeah, they just sort of, the two things kind of merged. And I started working in the camera department, started shooting stuff, and then also, working in the radio space. I worked on some cool shows, in Australia. And then right before just before the pandemic hit, I won the green card lottery, and I was like,
Nice.
"Cool, this is fun. I'll come over to the US." And I'd always wanted to kind of make the move to LA and try LA and give it a shot. And I spent, while I was at film school, I spent sort of a summer semester here, and I thought, this is amazing. It's like the land of dreams. And so I'd been trying for the green card lottery for like 10 years since then. And then I won, and I was like, yes. And then I got my passport back. It was like February 2020. And then like 2 weeks later, it was like the whole world shut down.
Yeah.
So then I basically did a couple of very quick flights over here when there was basically almost no flights running to get all the visa stuff sorted. And then officially moved over in I think 2021, right as everything was just sort of starting to reopen. So
Wow. Wow, amazing. That's like, I always wonder, like, what made you say, was it a movie that you watched that when you were like, you know what? I want to be a cinematographer. Like, I want to do this.
it's a good question. I think I used to love the movie Toy Story. I mean,
Oh,
still do. What a great movie.
it's a great one.
Which I mean, it's animated, right? So
Yeah.
there's not that kind of live action element, but I sort of credit that to getting me into the love of, I guess, storytelling. And
Yeah.
I started when I was when I was still in school. I was my mum's work, they bought a computer, and they had because both my parents worked. So my school holidays was spent usually with my mum at her work, just
Oh.
finding things to do. And they'd bought this computer to edit, some of their footage from like she worked at a university, and they had like university camps, and they'd bought this computer, and it had a, basic piece of editing software. And so I was just sort of playing around on it one day, and then I just kind of fell in love with editing.
Oh,
And
nice.
I went to when I went to film school, I kind of went there thinking I was going to be an editor, right? And I was like, I'm going to be an editor, maybe a sound editor, because I was sort of into sound as well. Kind of the music thing followed through, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of for me, right? And then I met a good friend there, and I'd always sort of played with cameras, and I kind of enjoyed playing with cameras. And he sort of said, "Do you want to?" We had to do a documentary project, and he said, "Do you want to film it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." And then then I was like, "Oh my god, this is great. This is what I want to do." And then, I shot his sort of the next film of his that was a Super 16 mil, and I just fell in love with it from there. And I think it was the two things that I loved, like I think the thing I loved about the editing and stuff like that was the kind of technical element of it.
Yeah.
And I think cinematography just had this, like, being out in the field, being on set, and this extra sort of layer of, in the field creativity that I think just was like a perfect marriage for me.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's amazing. I
Yeah.
love being in, like, just it's just a different feeling. When you're out there and you're just like
Yeah.
moving around and the action.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind
Great.
of, it can sometimes I'm like, man, I should have, it's much nicer when you're in an air conditioned, sitting behind a computer. That could be nicer than 14-hour days out in the elements. But they're just, I don't know, it's something about it that just really I love.
I'm curious, what's the difference, and or is there a difference as far as like um film wise and just work wise, back home where you're from to being in the States? Is there like a difference as far as like the business goes, and what is the difference
Yeah,
that you notice?
it's a good question. I find, I mean, the Australian industry is, I mean, it's getting bigger. There's a lot of
Oh, nice.
now international projects shooting in Australia, which is amazing for our
Nice.
industry. But when I came up through it, especially, and even still now, despite the fact that there's a lot of international project shooting, it's a small industry, very small
Mm,
industry, and for me, I found it hard to kind of properly break into, and I think it's also can be hard to make an ongoing living for your life.
I see.
um we don't have, I mean, you come to LA or the US generally, and there's just stuff shooting all the time. There's
Yeah.
shows and there's movies and there's everything all the time. I mean, not right now with the strike, but apart from that, we don't quite have, that we shoot a lot of reality TV in Australia, which is great.
Oh, nice.
There's a lot of unscripted stuff that, TV dramas, things like that. Now that there's streaming is here,
Mhm.
we're slowly kind of building that up again. But we kind of went through this sort of surge of TV drama, and then we discovered reality TV, and everything went to reality TV. And
Yeah.
so when I kind of graduated film school, we were sort of in this hyper reality TV kind of mode, and drama, TV drama and films were just sort of not really being invested in that much.
Mhm.
And so it was, I found it kind of tricky in a way to kind of really break into the industry, and it required a lot of, working for free and things like
Yeah.
that for a long time. And I mean, I love the Australian industry, and I love there's such good, but we have such talented people there. But I think that a lot of Australians do come over here to kind of try and make it in this bigger kind of industry here. And I think the other thing is Australia, I love it, but there's this thing called tall poppy, which is sort of like, how do I explain tall poppy? It's kind of like you should be happy with what you have, if that makes sense. And
Okay.
success is
Okay.
kind of can sometimes be looked down upon a little bit. And
Interesting.
so creative arts, and a lot of the funding comes from the government and things like that, and creative arts is often seen as not a viable career path,
I see.
just generally by people. You'll say, oh, I'm an actor, or I'm a this or whatever, and then people might say, oh, but what do you really do, or what's your day job, or
Oh,
um and so I think that's part of what I loved about when I first came to LA, and I was like, this is like a serious industry here, and your day job can be an actor or a musician or working in the creative industry. And not only can it be that, but you won't necessarily get a judgment for it. And obviously this is not to disparage Australians or Australia by any means, but there is that kind of cultural element that can be hard, I think, to overcome sometimes. And I think I think there's people who also give up on their dreams earlier than they should, because there's sort of pressure to have this, have your life together and have a day job and have a full-time job and make a certain amount of money and buy a house and blah 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 blah. There's kind of can be this societal pressure about it that I think, in a place like LA, it's everyone's a creative, right? Like everyone's got a script, every waiter you meet is an actor, it's that it's just it's just seen differently.
Oh yeah, it's very interesting to know, because I have a friend who's a writer that's there in Australia, and he was saying to me, he was like, it's really difficult, and I was like, well, come to the States, come on out. And so he's like, it's kind of hard to, but I think he's going to try to make the transition to check it out, and because I think he's super super talented. But I want to definitely get into your project, the Amanda Riley hot story. That I heard that story, and when I read it, I was like, oh wow, that's so interesting. I haven't heard the podcast version, so I listened to it. It was very very in-depth detail, like story. I mean, I remember seeing it on TV and hearing about it, which was super bizarre. But what made you say, yes, I want to talk up, I want to bring this story to life? I mean, it is a really crazy case.
I mean, I think that's kind of it. It's just such a crazy case, and I think the how long it went on for, is one element. But I think also the fact that it's firstly, it's like so wild that someone would do that,
right?
And secondly, it's like, there's a lot of true crime out there, right? And there's a lot of really crazy and wild true crime. But I think for me, the element that I like about this story, and that I think a lot of people connect with, is that this could be your next door neighbor, or this could be someone this could be your friend, right? That's doing this, and you wouldn't even necessarily know. I think that's the kind of element that's like, different from, say, some of the more hectic true crime stuff where it's like, oh my God, this could be my friend, that's the, I think that's this kind of crazy element, the extra crazy element to it.
Yeah. I was just like, wow, like, thank you for doing that, because it's very interesting. And then it's a different feeling that you get when you're listening to it versus, watching it. But it's it was really, really well done. And I just really enjoyed just the detail that, that went into it. If you could talk a little about the process of making it, like, how long did that take to really get all that?
Sure. Well, we probably took a bit over, I think by the time it finally came out, it was just over a year.
Okay.
We went to the Amanda sentencing up in the Bay Area, and while we were there, we kind of interviewed a few people and spoke to people who were affected, by what she did and what she's done. And then, we sort of delved into her background and all of those sort of extra details. And I think, the thing that was kind of tricky about it is it's sort of, it goes on for so long. She'd been doing this for so long, and there's so many details, and she told so many people different things, but at the same time, she had these blog posts that, I was looking through these blog posts when we first started kind of doing this, decided to do this show, and I'm looking through these blog posts, and I'm like I knew that she'd been charged at this point. I knew that she'd been charged. I knew that she'd pled guilty, and I'm looking through these blog posts, and I'm like, wait, are we sure that the government's got this right? Like, she looks like she has cancer. These photos are like, hang on, how does someone do this, right, if they don't actually have cancer? And it was sort of blowing my mind. And so I think that was kind of the tricky thing to kind of translate into an audio format,
Mm.
and especially the extent of it all. But I think what we decided to do is almost take you. We sort of don't say anything about what she was actually doing until the very end,
Yeah.
and you almost are placed in this you almost come along for the journey as if you're one of the people being affected by her. And I think that kind of makes the reveal, I guess, at the end, even though what's going on, it makes, I think, the reveal at the end a bit more like you were one of the people who are affected, because you hear the extent and the things she's saying and what she's doing, and it's like, how could someone be so bold, I guess.
Yeah, it's really, really bizarre. And like, I mean, I remember the story about, it was an actor who was on the show called I think it was it's the show called Empire, and he made this whole story up about him being like attacked, and and he hired the two guys to attack him, but he was like, they were white guys who attacked me and with MAGA hats on, and it says it's a racial crime, and like, he made the whole thing up. They were these two guys from like on a show, these guys from like Africa that he hired, and then they come out and talk about like their whole plan. And he's a TV actor, and it was just like, why
Yeah,
would you go to that extent to? Yeah, I don't know.
These stories that are so wild. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because another Lionsgate Sound podcast that I produced,
Yeah.
is called Attacking Jussie, and it's actually it's a companion podcast to a documentary about the two guys who worked with Jussie to kind of do that. And it's another kind of just crazy story, right? It's like these things are like unbelievable, but they're true. It's like, truth is stranger than fiction, right? It's like,
Right.
how is that true, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, as far as like a cinematographer and, creative, do you like podcasts more, or is it just a different feeling than, being on set and, really hands on with the camera and in the field? Like, I mean, obviously I think I'm sure you like both, but which one like, because I know you made another podcast show,
Yeah.
the El Chapo
Yes.
series, which was really, really cool. And like, that's completely different from the Amanda Riley story, but very still interesting, and just a different approach you use. I really enjoy that too.
Oh, it's great to hear. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's, I think they are very different things, but I think I mean, I really, I think, as I sort of alluded to, with the, Toy Story kind of sparking this storyteller in me, I think audio is just a completely different medium, and I think it's a great and really powerful medium, and I think it's a medium that has the potential to have more power than a visual medium.
Yeah.
I absolutely, like, I'm in love with cinematography. I love, putting stuff together like that. But at the same time, podcasting is like this. It's so much more intimate, and it's so much more, you listen to a podcast and you feel like you're kind of there, regardless of, anything, especially if it's, if you listen to your favorite chat podcast, for example, you kind of feel like you're there kind of chatting with your mates, right? You're like, oh yeah, I'm kind of part, even though you're not part of that conversation, it sort of almost feels like you are.
Yeah.
And I think that level of intimacy and connection is really kind of special and unique about audio, and I think really powerful about audio. I think it's also I say this a lot, but it's a responsibility for the people who make audio. We have this responsibility, I think, because it's so intimate and it has that connection. We have a responsibility, I think, to not kind of abuse it.
Yeah.
But, I think that's what I really just have always been drawn to, this kind of intimacy of this sort of storytelling medium. So it's hard because I love both. So, I'm like, well, what are we going to do? I'm going to have to do both.
I love it. And you're just telling amazing stories, and you're shedding a light on that. And yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's what creatives like yourself do. Like, just tell stories, that whether it's podcast, film, it's just telling great stories. And yeah, you're doing it. So I mean, kudos to you. Like,
yeah, well, thank you. But yeah, I think you're right. It's like, and it's also the kinds of stories you can tell in a podcast medium are different, or you can tell it we take Scamander, the Amanda Riley story, for example. It's like you can tell that in a way that would be difficult to, perhaps more difficult to tell in a visual format. And that's not to say the visual format's going to be, the visual format will, would still be great and still be engaging and still be awesome. But there are details and there's audio that you can use and things like that gives you a different kind of perspective or experience or just detail that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise get in necessarily a visual format, and you can spend time the one thing that really surprises me about podcasts is that people won't watch, a 3-hour movie. People are like, oh my God, a 3-hour movie. But a 3-hour podcast, people just listen to it. They can do other stuff while they're doing it, So if you need to, and you're engaging enough, and you can take the time to go into the details over, X amount of 3-hour episodes.
Yeah,
people love that, and they want the details, which you just can't really. It's a lot harder to do. I mean, unless you're Christopher Nolan, right? It's a lot harder to do in a visual format. So,
yeah. Speaking of Christopher Nolan, he has that new film, and Martin Scorsese. Yeah, he has a film coming out with Leo. That's gonna be. I hear it's gonna be pretty long, and I'm really looking forward to that one. Though I haven't. Yeah, they're a little dynamic. It's amazing. I'm curious, what is your okay, if you could have like a dream collab with anyone, who would it be and why?
Dream collab with anyone? That is a great question. Who I think it would be? I think it would be, I'd love to get a little sort of Australian group together, right? There's a director whose name is Alethea Jones, who actually taught me in film school.
Nice.
She's a fabulous director who is working here now. She just finished on Grease, The Rise of the Pink Ladies, and she's awesome. She's super cool. And there's a guy named Eddie Perfect who is a amazing comedian and writer and very funny person. And he's he wrote the music for Beetlejuice the Musical, which is currently touring around the US. And I also, both of these people have been such inspirations to me.
Yes.
Eddie, I was in when I was 7 years old, I was in a musical with him when he was like 21 or something, just out of acting school. And so I think for me, that kind of this little Australian dream team, I think would be a lot of fun to just kind of get together and make stuff with. That would be my dream.
Oh, that's so nice. I love that. That's very nice. I have a fun question. Well, I like to ask this question to every guest, and there's no wrong answer. The 3 levels of influence: power, money, or respect. And if you could choose one of those, which one would you choose and why?
Oh, that is a fun question. Do I have to choose just one?
I know, right? I know. It's so hard. I know.
It's a tricky one. Maybe if I choose one, does that mean I can't have the others? If I get respected, there's well, you're respected, but you're never going to make any money. No. Or if I have money, it's you have lots of money, but no one's ever going to respect you. They're going to think you're stupid, and you're never going to have any power.
Oh my gosh. I think it's whatever you feel is the best answer.
Okay. I think maybe I feel like my instinct is to veer towards respect because that's nice. But then at the same time, a little bit of me is more money would be good.
Listen, I really love your answer because I ask this question all the time, and everyone loves to go with respect, and I get it. It's great. But I mean, honestly, in all honesty, money does make the world go round.
Well, exactly. You can't pay your bills without money, You got to have money to live your life, right? So, I mean, in a way, if you had all money, no respect, no power, you'd still, you might probably have a nice life. I mean, people might not like you, but you probably have a nice life. If you have respect and no money and no power, I mean, that's cool, but what's the point of respect if you're living on the street?
Exactly. That's actually a really good point. It's a very good point. I think you're the first person that actually brought that to light. Thank you. Very good point. I have just like you said earlier, that we're living in such an interesting time.
Yeah.
And I just I have a lot of people that I listen to the show, and they always, you know, ask questions of like, how do you do it? Like, how do you get into it? So what advice would you give to someone that wants to like get in this business?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little cliche. I think if I was looking at myself 15 years ago, my advice would be just keep going. I
Yeah.
mean, I when I first came over to LA and I was like, my God, this place is amazing. I can have a career here, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, but I'm never actually going to get there. Like that's never going to be something that I can do. But here I am in LA, right? I'm in part of the industry. So keep believing in yourself and just keep going. I think is one of the hardest things is to have this idea or this dream and drive, and to be coming up against rejection or whatever it is, to just keep going and just keep chasing it. And even if that means you have to take a day job while you do it in your spare time, or you do it on the weekends while you, I don't know, work, whatever it is. You know, if it's something that you really want to do, something that you love, just keep chipping away at it in whatever way you possibly can. You know, even if it's just getting your friends together to, I don't know, make some stuff on the weekends and pop it on YouTube, or, you know, if you want to be a writer or you want to create your own stuff, just keep writing. Like the more you write, the better you get, and the more you do it, the better you get. So I think it's really hard because you kind of come up against these barriers and these sort of gates that kind of keep the industry closed, and you're like, oh, this is never going to happen for me. And, you know, and I think to just kind of push through that, push past that, and just don't put so much pressure on yourself to don't put a timeline on it, right? Don't be like, oh, by this time I have to have this or I'm a failure.
Yeah.
And B, just keep pushing towards it. Like, and you know, as part of that is sometimes you just got to stop and kind of smell the roses a bit. Like, you know, I'm here in LA and I'm like, part of me is like, oh, but I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that, and I'd really love to do this, but sometimes I just got to be like, but look at where I was, right? Like, look at how far I've come. So I think I think that's the hardest part, right? Is we lose such perspective, and we just, we're like, oh no, but I want to do this, and if it's not that, then I failed.
Yeah.
But you know, not even if you get that in 20 years time, that's still a success. And if you don't get to say this perfect, I don't know, whatever it is, you can get pretty close to that and still have an awesome life and be super successful. And, you know, I mean, so I think that would be my advice, is just keep going at it in whatever way you can. And, you know, I mean, I know it can be really, really hard to crack in. So I don't know, just keep doing it. Message me, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I can help you, but message me. I'll do whatever I can. I just, you know, make friends and just keep doing it.
Definitely. I love that. I love that. Keep pushing. Just don't stop. I mean, if you love something, you're not going to stop, whether it's you're going to come up against, you know, hurdles and hard times. And yeah, you're right. If you love it, you're going to just
and
make it
you
happen.
know, at the end of the day, like if you do it and I don't know, I always think like, if I try and I fail, I'd rather try and fail than not try at all, right? Like if I try and I'm like, well, I gave it a real red hot shot, but it didn't work out for me. So, you know, whatever, I'll go back to living a normal life. I'll take a job doing, I don't know, maybe I'll study to become an accountant, right? They make money, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
You know, or whatever it is, at least I've given it a shot. So I think, you know, sometimes just taking that first step, that's really scary first step, whatever it is, that first step that you're looking at, whether it's, you know, finding your first job out of college or film school, or deciding to quit your day job because you want to give whatever it is a go, or even just writing that first page, right? Sometimes it's just so scary because you're like, what if this sucks, or what if I fail, or what if, you know? But just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Nike, just do it.
Yeah, take a page out of Nike's book, you know?
I love it. Thank you so much for just coming on and sharing your amazing story with us. It's like it's over already. It's crazy. Like
I know, I can't believe it. I was like, what happened?
Where can people find you on social media so they can follow your amazing journey?
I'm on Instagram at Jaxson McLennan, JaxMcLennan. I haven't posted there for a while, but I'm gonna get back into it. You know, I've just been it's been slow on the socials for a while. And yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn if you want to find me there. I'm, just Jaxson McLennan, search me there, and you can add me, and I don't know, chat to me. I'll do whatever I can to help you out if I can help you out. So, and yeah, I mean, stay tuned to Lionsgate Sound too. We've got some cool projects in the pipeline. I mean, you can find our little Apple channel on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's exciting. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's
Of
great to
course.
chat.
Same. It was great. Definitely have to come back on in the future
Yeah, I'd
for
love to.
sure. And thank you all for listening. And always remember to live, love, laugh. We'll see you guys next time.